Hey everybody, Braden from Mike Productions here, and today I decided to make a video on 5 tips that will help you prepare for your first tournament. For a lot of new players, their first tournament can be a very intimidating experience and they can get very anxious when thinking about it, so I wanted to make 5 tips that will help you prepare for your first tournament, and that way you will be less anxious while you're playing and you'll be able to feel like you performed a little bit better to what your actual skill level is during your first tournament. With that being said, let's go into the first tip. And my first tip is going to be that you should stick with one character. I see a lot of new players try and shuffle between a variety of different characters. Now, while it's fun to play a lot of different characters, you really need to stick to one character to be your main until you get good enough at the game to where your fundamentals are developed enough to where you can start picking up those secondaries. But until then, you really need to focus on one character, and that's going to help you a lot in your first tournament because you're not going to be worried about which character you should go. You're going to stick with your one character, and even if it's a bad matchup, you're going to feel more comfortable using that character than you would with any of your other secondaries. Now the second tip goes pretty well with the first one, and that's going to be that you're going to want to practice your basic movement and combos with the character that you have chosen. The reason you want to do this is because you want to be as comfortable as you possibly can whenever you go into that first tournament set, and if you are unsure about how to move with your character or how to do your combos with your character, you're going to feel a lot more nervous going into that first game. But if you've practiced your combos and you've practiced your movement, once you hit a character, that character is in the disadvantage state and you can treat it just like you would a CPU, so you don't have to worry so much about fighting the player sitting next to you as more as the character on the screen in front of you. So my third tip is that you're going to want to learn the matchups for the most common characters and the best characters in the current metagame. You're going to want to do this because obviously these are going to be the characters that you run into the most during your tournament runs. So if you feel comfortable in those matchups, you'll feel a lot more comfortable playing against these people. Now if you do run into a matchup that you're unfamiliar with, don't get scared, use it as a learning experience. If you don't quite understand the matchup, go ahead and ask that person what you could have done differently in the matchup. Make sure you're very specific because it's a lot harder for more experienced players to answer a broad question like, what should I have done? Instead, ask them a matchup specific question that you can use to improve the next time you play that matchup. Learning every matchup in the game is a process that will take years to master, so take it slow and start with those matchups that are going to be most common in your local scene, and then work your way from there. Now the fourth tip is going to kind of correspond with the third tip, and that's going to be that you're going to want to study up on some of the top players in your region so that you're at least somewhat familiar with their playstyle in the case that you do have to play them. Say for instance you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you're wanting to go to a Shockwave. Now Shockwave is always streamed by Tourney Locator, so that's going to be a great resource for you. You can hop onto YouTube, go to Tourney Locator's YouTube page, and then search for whoever the top players are at the time, and you can see what character they play, what their playstyle is. Now don't go into the set expecting to beat them, but feel confident that you know certain things that they're going to do, and that way you won't play as scared as you would normally knowing that you're going up against the top player. With this knowledge, you're going to play a lot more confident, so you're less likely to flub certain techniques that you would normally be able to do perfectly if you were just by yourself. Again, all these tips are just to help you to feel more comfortable in your first tournament. These tips aren't necessarily to make you win your first tournament that you ever go to. Alright, so for my fifth and final tip, I'm going to recommend that you get some type of physical activity in before your tournament and that you fuel appropriately for the event. Now this is a more unconventional way to prepare for a tournament, but I have found it to be very beneficial from my own personal experience. I tend to perform better at the tournaments where I have gone to the gym or gone for a run prior to attending the tournament. Now I think that Smashers often overlook the importance of exercise when it comes to competing in tournaments. Simply, if you exercise before an event, you're going to feel healthier and more confident in your play, so this is going to correspond to quicker reflexes as well as more thoughtful decision making when you are playing in bracket. This small change in the way that you prepare for a tournament could be the difference between you winning or losing a set, just because you've simply prepared yourself better for that tournament than your opponent. Now again, this is just something that I have found to be very beneficial for me, so it's possible that not everybody is going to find this to be a useful tip, but in general I think just living a healthy lifestyle is a good way to prepare for any activity in your life. That's going to do it for this video. I hope that any new players that watch this video found these tips to be helpful, and I hope that your first tournament experience is better if you did in fact apply these tips. I appreciate everyone who watched up to this point, and I would love any feedback on this video and how these tips worked for you if you did end up using them before your first tournament. Let me know if you would like me to do more videos similar to this one covering various topics about the Smash community. So once again, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.